Hello, I'm Notes, and December is in full swing. So what do we typically think about when we think about December? I know for me there's only one thing that really feels right. That's right, metal! Nothing says Christmas like progressive metal. So let's take a look at a couple of those metal albums that have been released throughout the year. And to start it all off, let's take a look at Mastodon.
Triceratops! Saber-tooth tiger! Tyrannosaurus!
That's right, a very merry metal Mastodon Christmas. Once More Around the Sun was released by the American sludge progressive metal band. This was riding off of the coattails of The Hunter, their previous release, which wasn't their best work. It was a little bit more experimental, branching away from the traditional sludgy, metally, and fans didn't receive it with open arms. They kind of pushed back a little bit. I enjoyed it, but I came into the Mastodon fandom a little bit late. I got into their stuff around the Crack in the Sky era with the longer movements of the Czar and the Last Baron. I love the long orchestrations of these songs. When I looked through the back catalog after getting into them from Crack in the Sky, I wasn't really connecting with a lot of their other work. The only one that I really was liking was Leviathan, and that was mainly from Hearts Alive. And really, how could you not love a metal album that's basically about Moby Dick? But back to Once More Round the Sun. The music found in this album is a lot stronger than it was in The Hunter. There's much more focus on this album on what the band wants to get across. In interviews, a lot of the band members said that they kind of had this subconscious notion of what they wanted, almost as though the album itself was trying to make itself known to the band members. So that's strung throughout the album. There's a unifying whole found within this album that I really like, that I felt like The Hunter didn't quite have. Once More Around the Sun is very different in that it's very unifying. I do have a little bit of a criticism that I need to get out of the way right from the start, and that is the album is very front heavy. All the outstanding and solid songs for me happen in the first half of the album. They just keep building right from the get-go. They open up the gates and they fly. You know, each song builds upon the next and it builds upon the next, and they keep reaching for that pinnacle of awesomeness, and they grab it right in Asleep in the Deep. But then after that sixth song, that Asleep in the Deep, it just kind of peters out for me. You know, it's like they got to the top of the hill, and then instead of just like shooting down, it just kind of like wavers there and slowly kind of descends. So because of this very heavy front part of the album, by the time I get to the second part, I'm not really paying that much attention anymore. It never loses me, but it just never quite grabs me that same way. There are a few songs, like that last song, Diamond in the Witch House. That is a stellar song. That is so good. That last riff in that song, it's what's keeping me going, but I have to get through a lot of songs to get there. And as always, I love to dive a little bit deeper into the albums, and I want to take a minute just to kind of talk about the actual artwork that is found on this album, because it is beautiful. A lot of you that don't have the vinyl recognize this guy here, and then we have this guy, which is more of the vinyl release. And this really shows Mastodon's use of concepts and themes throughout the album. You've got this concept of life, growth, and prosperity, and this is captured beautifully in this gatefold here. And then contrast, flip side, you've got these sharp edges of death and decay and rotting, and that's all found on this guy here, where it's just like overripe and it's just falling apart. That goes really well with that concept of Once More Around the Sun. You know, it's all cyclical. It all comes back, you know, that life, that death, that rebirth. I could pick apart this for hours, but you guys wouldn't watch that. So I love the album artwork on this. Whoever designed that did a bang up job. And I love how they actually chose the title of this album, Once More Round the Sun. You know, it's almost saying as though they're making the sun round again. You know, instead of taking those very sharp beams, they're polishing it off. And you know, that mirrors the music that they're playing. It's a little bit more polished, it's a little bit more rounded off. It's not as just bare bones as some of their past albums are. There's a palpable tension found in this album that hasn't been covered quite as well. And that's with the distorted guitars, the vocals, that tension in the music. It's like you're holding on. You got that tension in there. And that's one of the great things about this album. So overall, Once More Around the Sun was a great improvement from The Hunter. And this has been the general consensus throughout the fans, throughout the critics, throughout the media. It's getting a lot more airplay. We've got a lot more solid singles from this one. It's a step in the right direction. Yeah, notes out.